friends, welcome back to Sanctuary Gardens. I'm Jolene, and today I'm going to be going over some more seed starting basics. I'm going to be talking about the very basic things that you need to start seeds indoors, and I'll also go over my system. My system is very primitive right now. So when it comes to seed starting, there are a lot of things that people say you need, but really when you bring it down to the very essentials, seeds need good soil, they need sunlight, and they need water to germinate and to grow. Those are the absolute essentials. Now there's a lot of other things, fertilizers, heat, things like that they may need to optimize healthy plants and good germination. But at the very basics, we're talking you need good soil and you need water and sunlight. So when it comes to soil, you need a good container to keep soil in. There's multiple ways to do that. I have a video on 3 household items you can use to start seeds in. I'll link that right up here. Now, when I first started, I used these little peat pots. They're a little bigger than peat pots. This is biodegradable. So technically you can plant the whole plant in this without peeling it off. So for those things that have really fragile root systems, this is a really nice solution. I've been using these for about 2 years. I ordered a whole bunch of them. And honestly, I'm not that impressed with them. They dry out really fast. And when I plant them, this really takes a long time to completely decompose. So I end up finding it in the soil. So then I feel like I have to peel it back and then I tear up the roots even more. So I just really haven't found these to be useful. They're also a little bit more expensive and you can't reuse them. They're one-time use. So I'm just using these up. But some people really like this option because it's biodegradable and nice on the planet, but I personally am not fond of these. My absolute favorite that I just came across this year is planting in solo cups. I have just found this to be a very simple, easy solution. These are cheap. You just poke a hole in the bottom. The plants have a lot of room to grow. And these, they don't have quite as much room. As you can see, it's maybe 2/3 of the size. And you can see I planted these at the same time and see how much bigger this one is just because it has more room to grow. So I think I'm gonna be using these from now on. Something easy I do is I just write on popsicle sticks. I have these type of things that you can buy, little tags. I ran out and they were all out in the store, so then I just wrote on popsicle sticks. Some people actually write on the solo cup, but then it makes it harder to reuse these the next year. These are reusable every year. You just have to clean them out with some soap and water at the end of the time that you're using them, stack them up, put them in the garage or in a cupboard, and you can use them next year. So that's really nice. When it comes to soil, I don't really have a preference on what kind of starting mix I use, but here's the key thing. So for soil, I use this Espoma organic seed starting mix. I'm not sold on this per se, like I don't absolutely have to use it, but this one was readily available to me when I started. So I've been using this one for a while. Seedlings need specific nutrients to help them grow, and they need a very light mix. And so make sure that you buy a seed starter mix or potting mix like this says here. Don't just go out and scoop up some dirt or soil from your backyard. That's not ideal. So the second thing that seedlings need is light. Now, ideally, in a perfect world, I would have a lighting system. And I'm going to be showing a quick clip from my friend Summer, who has a grow light system. That is the ideal way to do it.
Here is my growing room. It's actually my art room, so it's kind of a mess. But my husband won't let me start seeds everywhere in the house anymore, so I have to keep it contained. And here I have peppers. I seeded these about 3.5 weeks ago. And these are all my tomatoes, which I also seeded 3.5 weeks ago. And I have growing lights above them. I built this rack to hang them from. Here's the side we're going to be planting today. The rack is just some 2x4s that I slammed together, and the lights have an adjustable chain, you want them to be pretty close to the dirt when the plants are first sprouting. And then, as you can see over here, we raise it as the plants grow. My grow lights have 3 light settings. It's kind of super bright, sorry. It looks purple because I have all of them on right now. If I turn off the blue, then I just get red light. And if I turn off the red, I get blue light. And then I can turn them both off to just get white light. And the different color of lights do different things for your plants. The white light is just light. It's considered an all spectrum light with these particular fixtures. But I usually keep them all 3 on when my plant is growing like this. The blue light, which I'll turn on for you, the blue light supports plant growth. So it really gives them all the things they need to really grow strong and quickly. And the red light is really good for germination and for flowering. So if I wanted these tomato plants to stop growing up really high and start producing flowers, I'd leave this red light on them. I don't want that. I want them to just grow strong. So I am keeping all the spectrums on for them at this time. So over here, when I get these started, I'm going to have the red light on because I'm wanting them to germinate.
I don't have a great system like that. I would love to, and next year that's our plan, but we just pace things along each year. But until then, every year I have used this bay window here, provides a lot of light. I probably get 8 to 12 hours of sunlight here. If seedlings do not get enough sunlight, they will become what's called leggy. This is probably my best example. It's not super leggy, but you can see this plant, this tomato here, a lot of stem and not as much leaves, probably because it's not getting quite enough sunlight. And the last thing is even moisture. Seedlings you need to make sure that you keep them evenly moist, not too dry, not too soggy wet. Basically, a good rule of thumb is if you were to pick up the soil, it easily crumbles, but if it's not dry to the touch, that's how you know that your soil is just about perfect in moisture. So what I like to do is actually fill the tray with water, and then the seeds will soak it up, but I still pour a little bit over top. Don't get tomato seedlings very wet. They don't like to have wet leaves. So I've gone over the 3 basics. There are still a couple other things though that can increase your germination. One of those is heat. Some people find a hot place in their house, like the top of their fridge, something like that, where it'll be really hot just until the seeds pop up, and then they put them in a window after that. That's a great option as well. I like to use a heat mat to help with germination of my seeds. I found this, I believe, Park Seed. I'll try to include a link below to this particular one. And I just put this under my seedlings when I'm trying to get them to germinate, and it really does help with that germination, especially when it's cool out. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is fertilization. Some people don't fertilize their seedlings at all. I had not until this year. I decided I would give it a try. Someone had recommended this Neptune Harvest, and it has an NPK of 231. I can go over that later on what that means, but it's like a very it would be a diluted fertilizer that I just water my seedlings with to help make sure that they're getting the proper nutrition. There are a lot of other ones out there, but the main thing you need to know is if you're going to fertilize your plants, do half of the recommended dose. If it says 4 tablespoons in a gallon of water, you're going to be doing 2 tablespoons in a gallon of water.
I don't know if you can see this on the video, but I have a bit of a phosphorus deficiency right now. I don't know if you can see the little hint of purple under the leaves here. I get this almost every year because my seedlings, I don't get quite enough of the full spectrum light that they need, and so it inhibits their phosphorus uptake. So I've been fertilizing them. That's a good view of it. I've been fertilizing them to help with that. Hopefully next year when I have a grow light system, this will not be a problem.
This is something that I've been using for a couple years now. It's called a Biodome. I've had really good germination rates with this. I am probably not going to be using this come next year. It is a great solution if you have a few things you want to plant, but if you're starting to plant bigger scale like I'm starting to do, it's not the most cost-effective way of seed starting. But I have really enjoyed it. It's kind of basically a miniature greenhouse. So what it is you have this styrofoam thing here with holes in it. And then these are little pods that you place. They are biodegradable, and it has a bunch of nutrients in it for the young plants. And you just stick those in, you stick your seed in, and then you fill the tray with water, and those soak up the water. So it's really nice. It helps regulate how much water. And it's also nice because this here can create that moist, warm environment, and I put a heat mat. So it's really, really great germination for me. But there are quite a few cons. One is the cost of it. I have to buy those little starters plugs every year, and they're not terribly expensive, but if you're doing a lot of sowing, probably not your most cost-effective way of doing it. And the other thing is you're a little limited on what you can do. This is 40 cells in here, that 40 cell capacity. I found this on Park Seeds. I will list a link below if this is something you're interested in. I will probably be giving this away come next year. One way that I kept track of what's in each thing is I numbered here and then did letters on the sides. So that way I can know what's in each thing. I made this sheet here. I don't know if you can see it, but they have numbers and letters. Oh, my husband's home. And then I just write down what I planted in each cell. This kind of coordinates with the cells, all 40 of them. So it's just a simple way for me to keep track. So this is actually the next day. I did that video yesterday and realized as soon as I finished that there was actually a couple more things I wanted to mention. When you're doing a system without a grow light and you're keeping your plants in a window, one thing you have to realize is plants will always reach towards sunlight. And they do that naturally outside, but with the sun coming up and setting, plants will be bending and moving. But when you have a fixed window, plants will constantly be reaching towards that sunlight, meaning that they're going to be at a permanent bend. Unless every day you turn it around so that the plants are now bending the other way. So that way they're not going to be in this permanent tilted position. They're going to be constantly moving a little bit more natural to what it would be like if they were outside. The other thing with any system that you're starting seeds indoors, if they're in a controlled environment, meaning that they're not dealing with all the extreme temperatures of what it would be like outside, they're not dealing with rain, with wind. So plants that are grown inside tend to be a little bit weaker than the plants that naturally start growing outside. So you want to do some things to help strengthen those plants. Later I'm going to be talking about hardening your plants off before you transplant them outside, how to get them acclimated to the temperature changes and the different weather conditions they'll be dealing with. But one of the things you can do even before then is kind of recreate some of those things they might deal with outside, such as wind. So what I do every day is I turn on a fan for a couple hours and I let that very lightly blow on the plants for just a little while. It'll help strengthen the stem of the plant. If a plant is never moved or constantly in a very stagnant air, the stems tend to be weaker. So you want to help strengthen those by, first of all, turning the plant so it's always following the sunlight if you don't have a grow light, or with a little bit of that wind, it'll help stimulate growth in that stem to make it stronger. I want you to know that you can do this even if you don't have a fancy grow light system. But ideally, if this is something you're going to do long term, do think about getting a good grow light system. And that's something that I will be doing next year. If you stay tuned about later this year, early next year, I'm going to be building one of those so you can see how we do it.